dance or something. It's kind of a long song. Would you have danced with me if I was just dancing? I've been practicing my Croatian. How many of you speak Croatian by show of hands in here? I say Dobar dan. This means good day. Yeah. And I say živjeli. I learned that one real quick. Yeah. Cheers. And jedno pivo and va piva. You have a beautiful language. Yeah, so my name is Jonan. I am I was formerly the head of developer relations at this company called DXOS, which is actually an open source project being built by some friends of mine. I was helping them out to kind of like get a developer relations plan in place. I'm going to talk a little bit about DXOS, but that is not my role currently, and my role currently is less relevant to this content anyway. But I am Jonan. I go by the Jonan Show on the internet. You can find me just about everywhere. GitHub, Twitter is probably best. If you call it X, you're not welcome to follow me. So you can call it 10 though. If you call it 10, that's allowed. You can call it 10 and DM me. You find me on the internet as the Jonan Show. I am the head of developer relations for a company called Midnight. And Midnight is a company that you won't even find a website for about another year. We're working on it. As the head of developer relations, that would be my responsibility. But I've been busy drinking in Croatia. So, we are going to talk about a lot of things today. I want to talk a little bit about this blockchain thing, because someday when there is a Midnight website, you're going to see that it is a blockchain thing. And a lot of developers here feel like this is the blockchain. This is blockchain burning the world down. Just raise your hands. It's okay. I know I work for a blockchain company, but who here would like have walked out if you weren't already too embarrassed to leave because I just said blockchain, right? I get it. This is not a popular topic amongst developers. And the reason is the vast majority of it is BS, right? A lot of hype cycles, and 1% of it is novel computer science. In the next 30 days working at Midnight, I will get to do a thing with a computer that has never been done with a computer. And I think that's pretty awesome. If you're interested in zero knowledge proofs, please come and find me and we can talk about ZK, because I think it's a pretty impressive technology. Another technology I'm super impressed by, hey look, the slide didn't change. AI. Here on the AI track, we are, I fear, typing away towards the end of the world as fast as our little fingers can type. I'm very concerned about this technology and where it will take us as a civilization. And not just from a perspective of a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. And that will definitely happen. I think amongst developers at least, I have a hard time finding someone who doesn't believe that in the next 5 years, 20% of the jobs we know won't exist anymore. That's terrifying. Over a 5-year span, to go to a global 20% unemployment hit, it's going to be a rough 5 years. So I have some ideas about how we can combat that. And I talk about hastening the apocalypse, but I hope that together we can kind of look at ways that we might avoid it, right? So I want to dig into that a little bit. Some of the things that are coming for AI right now that kind of threaten it are legislation. We will very shortly have a cookie-style pop-up, a GDPR compliance. Maybe the EU is just going to ban AI, large language models, from major corporations. And this puts certain parts of the world at a tremendous disadvantage. If the United States has open access to all of the AI, and Europe has partial access to all of the AI, how long does it take for the United States to win? You might tell that I'm American. I was born in America, and I live now in Berlin. I am not so on board with the American dream these days. I think we went a little off the rails. That late stage capitalism thing, it's not my thing. And I'm a little concerned about that country and software companies and very, very wealthy billionaires getting more money and more power. And I think legislation is going to steer us towards that, actually. I think what we're doing is we're trying to protect ourselves because we're worried about things like surveillance, right? We don't want governments to be able to snoop on the kind of things that we're doing with this. And maybe it isn't surveillance, right? This is maybe just a privacy issue. This image is generated by Midjourney, as are all the images. And it is fascinating to me that this is what Midjourney came up with only the prompt, privacy. The door is like squirting water and there's a creepy doorknob. I love this stuff, but it hallucinates, right? This is not an image maybe that an artist on planet Earth would come up with, given the prompt privacy. And this is just kind of the tip of what happens with AI. right? We are starting to learn the faults of these models and we're rushing headfirst in. And there are a lot of problems, there are a lot of concerns. I personally would like to use ChatGPT to do things like read my email. That would be amazing. I could have ChatGPT read all of my email. All I have to do is connect my OpenAI account and my Gmail account and give OpenAI access to my entire email history. I've been using Dropbox for about 15 years now. It's a giant steaming pile of files. I just throw stuff in there. I would love to have ChatGPT help me organize that, but there is no world in which I connect my Dropbox account to ChatGPT. That's a terrible idea for these kinds of reasons. So I have an alternative that I'm going to pitch you on here, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I think we are approaching a place where we're not going to need servers so much anymore. There was a period of time in computer history where servers made a lot of sense because our home computers were pretty weak. And so we had very big computers in the cloud. And now we have very big computers at home and on our wrists and in our pockets. Every one of you is a developer and has 12 CPUs on your person right now that are more powerful than the EC2 instance you're paying Jeff Bezos to have. We actually today have the technology to connect those CPUs together, peer-to-peer. We don't need the server infrastructure anymore. We don't need to inject people in the middle. And combined with local LLMs, as I'll detail here, that gives us an alternative route. There are rather a lot of brilliant computer scientists who are AI researchers around the world working to build open source versions of all of these models. And they're not as good. They're not as good because they don't have a 400,000 GPU cluster to train it on. But it doesn't matter to them. They're building it anyway. These are some of the most valuable people in the world right now. If one of you is like an AI researcher and you were to raise your hand looking for work right now, you might get tackled into the hallway. This is a very, very popular industry, and these people are dedicating hours of their lives to this thing. There's a really good reason for that. These models are too powerful to leave in the hands of corporations. It's a very big risk for society. So, we give up? Who surrenders? Bunch of quitters? I don't know Croatia to be a bunch of quitters. I think decentralization is an alternative. And a lot of you just heard blockchain because they see decentralization and they think blockchain. When I originally wrote this talk, I was talking about DXOS in this instance. This is the DXOS website. It is not a blockchain thing, even a little bit. It is a JavaScript thing. You use JavaScript. Oh, let's give you a QR code. Everyone scan the QR code because I have a little prank I want to play on my friends at DXOS where I am no longer. Please scan the QR code. We're all going to hop in the Discord and say exactly the same thing. Jonan says hi from Croatia, just like 20 of us, okay? You don't have to stay in the Discord if you don't want, but it's a fascinating project, and it's not the only one of its kind. There are a lot of people building these decentralized frameworks to do this kind of thing, and they're all building around the blockchain space. They don't need a blockchain to achieve this anymore because we have WebRTC. I can connect my browser directly to your browser in your phone by punching a hole out through the internet. And now I have a direct peer-to-peer connection, and now we don't need servers or Jeff Bezos. We don't have to pile up all the money under Amazon. I mean, someday he will have all of it. I'm up here ranting about it, but I still keep ordering from Amazon because it's so fast and easy, right? And we're not going to stop. So we just have to prepare for a future where that's real. So DXOS, go here, click on the join Discord, say Jonan says hi from Croatia. Or no, say Jonan says Dobar dan from Croatia, okay? Valapuno. Valapuno, yeah? Nice. My Croatian is killing it today. Yes, thank you very much. All right, as I said, look at that. It's JavaScript. You can install the DXOS client thusly. And this gets you kind of a lot of things. They describe themselves as a decentralized operating system. They're not really exaggerating. This is way more than we need for our use case. What we really need is Redis. We need PubSub. We need a way for one AI on my home machine to talk to a model running on my laptop or on a Raspberry Pi. And it can run in all of those places now. We have different sizes of models with different capabilities who can do very specialized things. I'm going to teach you how to do that. But you can set this thing up, and it gives you the ability to do this. You import a client from DXOS. We create the constant with our client. And now we do our await And that's all of it. Now we have this whole operating system at our disposal, right? So next steps, we create an identity. This Halo thing that they've built into their platform, it's a portable key pair, right? You have a public-private key pair, and you could put it on a USB drive and put it around your neck and carry it around the planet. And it means that anytime you plug that key pair into a computer, you can just open a browser and connect peer-to-peer to your private network of machines, including all of your data and your AI army. That seems like a better future to me than going and passing all of our data over to some cloud provider, right? So this is just a very high-level overview of DXOS. My pitch is that we use this to enable our self-replicating AI army, okay? When you create the Halo, you also need to create a space. This is a data space. So I can have a data space with you, and I can have a data space with you, and each of these is private and encrypted and forever ours, and always accessible to either of our key pairs. You plug your USB drive into his computer, and you have access to your data space with me, right? You can create a separate one with him. You can invite other people into these. This all syncs magically in the background. It uses CRDTs. It's fascinating technology, the stuff that they have here. It is eventually consistent. I think you will find in reading about it that for most use cases, this is enough. And you now have a data blob that you can carry with you anywhere in the world, and an identity, and a suite of applications you can install on top of it. It's pretty awesome. I'm pretty excited about this thing. If I'm honest, it needs a minute. It needs a minute. It's very new technology. The network traversal, the hole punching, has browser problems, right? Safari is way over the top with their security controls. So you can't do the thing with the identity very easily. There are other browsers, and you may be using an extension that's going to break it, but you should go and play with it so we can make it better, because this kind of technology only wins if we go and play with it. It turns out that the industry follows us. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but developers are pretty popular. Sometimes people put on very expensive conferences just to hear what we think. If you go and follow along with these projects and you support and star and are involved with the open source projects, and again, it's an MIT licensed open source project. I'm not trying to sell you anything. There's literally nothing for sale, right? But if you support these projects with your time and your energy and your tweets and so on, these win. And maybe we get fewer major corporate offerings where we're installing middlemen who make billions of dollars. Redshift is a fork of Postgres from 7.4, and Amazon has contributed approximately nothing upstream to the hundreds of thousands of hours of PhD computer science work that they took and sold for several $billion. And if any of you work for Amazon, I'm sure they're a partner here, they're a partner everywhere. As I said, I'm gonna keep ordering, Jeff. Please don't shoot me. But that scares me. I really don't like anyone to have that much power and money in one place. It's terrifying. So, this is composer.dxos.org. This is a demo app that they've built. It's like a little text editor that does code. You can live code and things. You can go to Composer and you can create a space with your friends here at the conference, and you can do some live editing. You can also plug it into your GitHub so you can pair program on issues using your phone or without ever logging into the interface. And all of this will just sync. It's a pretty cool little demonstration of what the technology can do, and it's really just the beginning. One of the things that I saw at DXOS, and is not a feature that's available yet in Composer, is a local LLM running inside of my boss's computer. The CEO, Rich, of that company, was running an LLM that would read his email and his calendar and all of his information, because it was all local and it was in his private encrypted data space. And then he would use it to plan his vacations. He could ask his little ChatGPT to plan his travel. I travel a lot for conferences. I would love it if I could have an AI just tell me what plane to get on and when. That would be amazing. And you can do that if you're willing to give up all of your data. But in this case, you don't have to. It's a brilliant middle ground. So let's talk a little about LLMs. This part, for some of you, if you are an AI researcher, you're going to be bored for a minute, but hear me out. I think a lot of people skip some steps. A lot of people look at it like LLMs. I certainly did. Like here is the AI magic descended from the heavens. And it's something, it's kind of like a Markov chain. or auto-suggest. It's like fancy auto-suggest, right? It's much, much more complex than that, but it's actually not that difficult to understand if you break it down carefully. So I'm gonna try and step you through pretty quickly what these AIs are doing, what these LLMs are doing. And that's going to be really useful when you go to set these things up locally, because a lot of the projects that I'm recommending you work with here, they are open source projects. They're under documented. They don't have full-time technical writing teams. You're going to have to figure it out. They're going to use a lot of the lingo that is native to this field, and you're just going to have to figure out. So I'm going to step through a little bit, and I'll try to go quickly enough that I don't bore the experts and fast enough that the beginners can still keep up, okay? So we're going to talk about word vectors for a second. This is also a Mid-Journey generated app. I'm not sure why there's blood on it. I think those are supposed to also be map markers. They look like the Google Maps markers, but it looks like the markers are like dripping blood down the map. It's kind of dark, right? So a word vector is a vector. We are going to break it down like this. Washington, D.C. is at this latitude and longitude, yeah? And New York is at this latitude and longitude. And so the difference between this number tells us that they're close. And the difference between the other number tells us that we're close. So we can just do some math and determine that these two things are close together. And this is easy for humans to do because we can think in 2 dimensions with a map, right? You can think, okay, we've got an X and we've got a Y. And then maybe sometimes if you're a game designer, you think in Z too, but that's about as far as we go, right? So let's talk about cat. The word cat, when we turn it into a vector, has 300 numbers in it. There are 300 distinct numbers to describe cat in one of the models I was playing with. And this is the vector of cat. And if I'm trying to decide whether or not cat fits into the sentence, whether or not it's the next word, I'm comparing all of these numbers to all of the other numbers in all of the other words in the sentence, and I'm trying to decide if this is close. And it's definitely not a simple thing for human beings to wrap our heads around because we barely think in 3 dimensions. We certainly don't think in 300 dimensions very easily. But these are all different dimensions of cat that can be used in different contexts. And this may not be the only definition of cat. This may not be the only vector of cat that we have. So that word is not necessarily always the base unit. LLMs also tokenize things, and they do it because in the case of banana, you might use BAN again in a sentence. Maybe in a certain text, you use the word ban or band. BAN becomes a very common 3-letter sequence, and now the LLM can become more efficient by tokenizing that word, by breaking it up. So it doesn't really care that it's banana because it has no concept of banana. It's just trying to do this pattern matching, right? So we'll break it up into tokens. So we have ban and we have Anna, okay? So now we're able to do math on it. We can take a banana and we can take away the yellow and we can take away the fruit. We can add a vegetable and we can add a green. And now we have a cucumber with some weird little deformity on it. I don't know what that is, but if anyone can figure out why it has like this little chameleon eyeball on it, again, hallucinating. But that's pretty cool that you can add and subtract these things. It enables all of this vector math that takes us to the next layer here. About magazines. Has anyone ever worked at a magazine? Has anyone ever read a magazine? Yeah, that's the same word, right? It's not the same word, actually, because one of those is made of paper and the other is a company. If you work at a magazine, you work at a company. If you read a magazine, you're holding a piece of paper. And this occurs over and over and over again in every language. We don't realize it, but we very often take this information from context. So we have to give an LLM a way to do that, because if magazine is just those 300 numbers and it's always the same, then when I say Jenny works at a magazine or Jenny read a magazine, those are going to match wrong, right? Magazine is going to start showing up in the wrong place when we try to predict the next word in the sentence. So an example of missing context: fruit flies like a banana, right? Bananas are famous for getting fruit flies like this, right? Oh, the fruit flies are all over the banana. Or like this: fruit flies like a banana. Bananas fly. This is a very happy banana pilot here, flying on a banana. And this was actually the first picture I got for just flying banana. I don't know why they decided we needed a pilot for the banana, but those mean the same thing. Even in the same sentence, we're now missing context, right? So this is where transformers come in. A transformer is a way to inform these tokens with additional context. We pass it through this layer, like we're shaking it through a screen, and we add additional context. One layer, a transformer layer, will add that this is a verb and that is a noun. That magazine in this context is probably a company, we think, because more often than not, when someone works at a thing, they're not working at a paper noun that you hold in your hand, they're working at a company, right? So these transformer layers, when you get enough of them, can do magic by adding a lot of context. Now, beyond this point, I'm going to stop educating on LLM technology because then we go into the neural network part, where we start to iterate through a similar process for a very long time. And this is where we need all of those GPUs because these tokens, these models, they're massive. The number of parameters that fit in here. When you go to ChatGPT and you submit a request and it says you're over the token limit, it's because they don't want to give you more processor power than your 4,096 tokens that they're willing to give you for both the question and the answer in this go. And I think the previous speaker was talking a little bit about like hacking around GPT. There are ways to get around these token limits. Fortunately, if you run it yourself, you don't have to worry about it so much. And you probably will not ever build anything as strong as ChatGPT in your home. But with a large network of small, weak AIs, you can get pretty close. So I want to walk through one of those things here. One of those projects is called LangChain. LangChain is a LLM toolkit. Kind of like Angular was a toolkit before they became a framework. I would be willing to bet that LangChain becomes an LLM framework someday to work with these. You can use LangChain to do various like combinations of different models and to add other features on top of them to pass options into them. That's very useful for what we're trying to build here because my argument is that we're not going to have the most powerful AI, but we're going to have the AI that is best at what it does. I want to have an AI that is just for booking travel arrangements. So that AI needs to know a lot about my email and my calendar and my conference schedule and travel generally. And if you educate a ChatGPT 2 really well on a specific topic, it actually does pretty well. So this is how you install LangChain. This is for the ZSH instructions. If you're using a MacBook, if you're using Bash, take the quotes off. But in Z Shell, you got to have the quotes around it. So we're just pip installing. This is just a Python package. You're installing LangChain, and the brackets tell it to give you all of the LLMs. The actual LangChain framework is much smaller. It doesn't give you any of the models along with it. But you'll want to install this if you want to use it locally, okay? So we have LangChain locally, and what can we do with it? Well, we can do stuff like this. We can import a prompt template, and then we can say, what is a good name for a company that makes flying bananas or X? We can prefix with a prompt template so that we can find a company that is a good name for making colorful socks, right? This is a small part of what we're trying to do. We're trying to get a very contextual, specific AI out of this. And this is the good part here. This is all it takes to read that blog post right here, to read Lillian's blog post and use it as context to answer this question. When we say that we want to ask a question on this index now, it will reply using the context from that blog post. So that could just as easily have been the Infobip documentation or the AWS documentation. You can train this up for your own specific purpose, and you can even spin them up and down on demand on your own hardware. And you have DXOS as the control center. Again, we're using it mostly as pub sub, so we can poke the program and make the program do a thing from very far away. But we're doing it in a way that is permanently encrypted and private and mathematically provably unable to be spied upon, right? We want that. We want that instead of what we have right now, because we are training ChatGPT collectively as a society as fast as we can. And over again, these AI companies are saying, oh no, we're not using your data this way. Oh, whoops, we did. Oh no, we're not using it that way. Oh, whoops, we did. I'm not bashing on AI as a technology. I am obviously a huge fan. What I'm saying is we got to be careful. This is exactly the road into fire and brimstone that we are walking right now. Okay? So this is one potential alternative. Now, this requires the use of a model. Now, I was talking about those transformers. When we're running the things through the transformers and we're running through the layers of this neural network, we're training it, right? And that's where we get into the very big numbers of parameters, the 13 billion parameter Falcon. No, it's not Falcon, the Microsoft one that they've open sourced, but is not available to use for commercial purposes and all of this. These massive number of parameters makes for a much better GPT, but GPT for all is an alternative that is being trained by the open source community, and you can just download it. It's great. So you can find GPT for all here. And this is going to require the Llama project. I think this is a project out of Meta. This is this is Llama CPP. It's like a C++ implementation of this Llama from Meta, which is again out there, and it's an opportunity for you to run your own AI locally, right? So in this case, we can just go here and create our model, our GPT for all model, and then we can call it like this. We just say, once upon a time, give us an answer. And I encourage you to try it out. You can actually download this thing, and I think it's maybe a 3 gigabyte model, the smallest one that they have available, to get onto your machine and just run it locally and see how it works for you. Depending on your use case, it may be good enough or better, right? So in this case now, we have our private P2P data, right? I no longer need a server. There's no place to man in the middle attack me as my data is transiting. And again, I'm not saying that you're trying to avoid surveillance, right? Surely none of you have ever done anything wrong in your whole lives, but maybe someday someone makes a law that the things you used to do, they were all wrong, and now you go to jail. Probably better safe than sorry, right? That private P2P data is really important to me, okay? We have global access to it. I have my Halo on a USB drive that I carry around in my necklace, and I can plug in and get access to my DXOS data in all of my spaces, including all of the output data from these things, right? I'm not suggesting you store the entire model itself in a peer-to-peer database. This is probably unwise, but that's why you have these purpose-built AIs. I've got a couple of them running on my home server, and I can talk to them individually to look at documentation for various products that I'm interested in. And then I don't have to worry about having access to their responses because I can store it all in this central place, right? We have our local LLMs. We don't have to worry about using servers to run our LLMs. We have all the hardware we need. All of you have more than enough hardware to run your LLMs right now. Some of these run on 8 gigs of RAM. We have custom prompt templates, so we can simplify our lives a little bit. We have the ability to import context where I can hand it, and that index that I showed you was an example of how to do this, but you can hand it a website, you can send it a collection of PDFs or some text documents or Word docs, whatever you can come up with. If you still have Word docs, please don't carry them into the future. Let's just convert those right away. All of that means that we get to break free of our chains here. Potentially, there is a small chance that we can push forward a suite of technologies that mean that without my mother ever really thinking about it, she'll have an AI on her phone, but that AI is built on open source collection of products that all combine together to build this reality instead. I like that a lot better. I do think that the breaking chains picture is a little bit cheesy, but Midjourney is pretty hokey when it comes right down to it. So this is your final haiku, your reward for sitting through my whole talk. I asked ChatGPT to write a haiku that includes fruit flies like a banana, which it did not do. Fruit flies like a breeze, sipping nectar from ripe days, nature's dance, so free. It's pretty simple instructions. That's the best we've got to offer right now. So let's try and build something a little bit better ourselves. Thank you very much. I'm Jonan. Vala Pluma.